week before that, 2 weeks ago, and had a great time there. And then last week, Laura came on solo. I was moving and also had bronchitis, and poor Laura is also sick, so I just kicked her off the live and told her she couldn't talk because she was having some coughing issues. So hopefully she gets feeling better, and next week, hopefully you see both of our smiling faces on your computer or phone. But today we are going to talk a little bit, and by we, I mean just me, about business continuity in the law firm sense. And so obviously we think virtual lawyering is the best thing ever because of its flexibility and the savings it offers. And so you hear us oftentimes talking about that, about how we do have that flexibility to design the firm around our life and still be able to, serve clients and do other things. And so you hear us kind of come at it from that, point of view, which is obviously a huge draw, but also on the fear side, it's great in the case of disasters, unforeseen events, also, big outbreaks of coronavirus. And so there are a lot of legal conferences. What kind of brought this to mind is there are a lot of legal conferences out there that have been shutting down. And I've been talking to some folks about, what that looks like to either go remote or, do something virtually, whether it's interacting with clients, interacting, with your staff, how you keep your operations running. And so, as attorneys, we're really supposed to have a business plan if something happens to us. So that way our clients are, of course, taken care of. We're not missing deadlines, interrupting their lives, having any serious impact on their cases. But we also need to think of it in other terms as well. There are other reasons we want a business continuity. We don't want to just name. I remember when I first set up shop, I just named somebody as a successor attorney because I was a solo, to take care of things if something happened to me, whether I was, incapacitated or, passed on, whatever. But really, we need to think about the resilience of our business holistically. We need to think about our ability to actually quickly adapt to any disruptions so that we can maintain continuous business operations and protect our people, our clients, our assets, just our overall brand quality, because it could be devastating on your firm if you are not adequately prepared. And so, one thing we think about oftentimes happening is illness. Like I mentioned with coronavirus, there are a lot of things, a lot of businesses, not just law firms, are having to look at how they're, not only operating internally, but how they're serving their customers and clients. But illness also in that, if you're sick, we don't want even something like the flu, something else. We do not want people coming into work or interacting with clients when they have the flu. If they have sick kids, that's really hard to navigate sometimes. Whether you're both working parents or single parent, whatever, it's hard to navigate. And so, a lot of times I remember whenever I, was working for someone else and I had a set number of, days off per year, I would push through it. I would probably not need to be at work, but I would push through it because my clients needed me and I didn't need to miss. And I didn't have the option to, work remotely. It's definitely not virtual friendly. And then I would save all those days up for when my kids were sick. And so, obviously we don't want that to happen. So there's definitely a way to do both. Being a virtual practice, I feel like, we're a little bit future-proof and we protect ourselves in a lot of ways. And, whether it's illness or natural disaster and other disasters, that's something else we have to think about. So, those are all things that we need to consider what we're going to do, how our operations are going to continue when those things happen. So what types of things should you be thinking about when you're trying to figure out and pre-plan? Obviously, if you're in the middle of something, there are things that take priority that you have to think of now, and maybe just address those things and have more of an immediate, reactive response. But what I'm talking about today is really being intentional and planning ahead of time so that you do not have to be reactive and your systems work and you don't have to have that added stress. So one thing you need to think about is how you're communicating with your customers, your clients, your vendors, any other third parties, whether it's, opposing counsel, just to ensure that you are able to provide good information, support, you're able to communicate effectively. If all you have is a landline phone in your office and, something's happened to your office and you can't actually go to your physical office, do you have an answering service? Do you have some kind of, forwarding service where you can handle that? Do you have a plan in place for that? Also, you want to ensure that you're able to actually provide the services if something happens. A lot of firms still have paper files. They don't have anything, at least they may have it saved on a computer or a server, but they don't have it necessarily backed up. They also don't necessarily have it organized where people can collaborate or come pull from it. And so, in that situation, what do you do if you're in the middle of working on somebody's, case, and obviously you have deadlines? If you can't access that case file because you can't physically go pick up a paper file, what are your options? What are you going to do? Again, if you have something virtual, if you're at least utilizing technology, then you're able to maybe, save it on the cloud, put it on an external server. You're communicating with clients that way. You have some kind of option to be able to continue business, even if you're not physically in the office. Obviously, in an emergency situation, if you don't have these plans in place, I don't expect you to be going and scanning all of your files in immediately or in one day's time, because it takes a while. But think about, starting to do some of those things and move to some of those things before an event actually happens. Also, figure out what you need to prioritize, so that way, if something happens, you do have those priorities in order, and figure out how long it's going to take you to get back, so you can communicate that and manage the expectations of everybody involved, whether it's your staff, your clients, the court, whatever. You also need to figure out how to support your employees, your staff, during an emergency event. And so you're going to want to make sure that that your employees, maybe have that option to work remotely, that they have if they don't have a home computer, they need some way to work. So maybe providing laptops, maybe not buying them for them, having some you can issue from work, making sure that you are, providing tools and processes, so that way there's a system that they know to turn to, a process to go through. There are tools they can access through you that help them to actually effectively continue on and do their job. So, consider the technology that you're going to need to actually support those business functions. You're going to want to, be looking at those things, figure out what, how your firm operates, what your processes are if you don't already have that written down, how technology can be used to enhance those processes, even in the day-to-day, but in these types of events. So it may be something that is only used when this type of event triggers the use of it. Also, use what you have. And so when I talk a lot to attorneys, I talk about client portals specifically. A lot of people use law practice management systems like Clio, Practice Panther, MyCase. There are a lot out there. And they may use them internally, which is great, because then you have a cloud-based place to save and collaborate. But they don't necessarily use the client portal side of things. In the event of emergency, I'm not saying you have to use it all the time. I think it's really good for a lot of reasons. It's secure, it's encrypted, it's a place where you have everything in one place, and can manage client communications and other things. But so I'm a huge advocate for using the client portal regardless. But in these situations, maybe manage that expectation with a client. Let them know, hey, if something is to happen, this is what we do, and give them access. And that way they have access to you and access to whatever you need to, from them to collaborate. So use what you have. Look at the tools you already have, and then you can kind of expand on it from there. Look at what workaround processes to use when technology is not available. This is absolute worst case scenario for a virtual law firm. This is our kryptonite. So this is one thing you definitely want to plan for. Sometimes in natural disasters specifically, you may not have access to technology. So, it's always good. Again, external servers, cloud-based technology options. At a minimum, you're able to recover those things, even if you can't recover them necessarily at your physical place of business, at your home office, whatever. You may not be able to communicate with clients. Just have a place and plan in place, and then be able to communicate that with clients, so that way they know what to expect when something happens, and that stress is not added on you, added onto them. I mean, worst case scenario, you can send out a mass, obviously BCC'd email, to clients with some kind of statement, but just make sure you have a plan in place, because it's going to make your clients feel better. It's going to make you feel better. You also want to know where and how you're going to relocate your people and processes if your actual physical location is impacted or it's not available. that can happen. And so if that happens, do you have a second location? Do you allow your, staff and attorneys to work remotely? How does that work, and what systems do you have in place? Also, who do you need to make this work? What teams do you need? What organizations have to be involved? What do you actually rely on your day-to-day in order for everyone to get their work done? And also test your stuff, put it in place, test it. We tend to make assumptions about how things are going to operate or what people need. Just make sure that you are, testing what you have in place, and that everybody is on board and knows what's happening. And ensure that your staff is adequately prepared and also supported. So, you want to make sure that you understand their job, you understand their needs. Ask them, talk to them, figure out what they do. It's great to delegate. We encourage delegating, but also you want to know what they need from you to be able to function in, during an event. You're also going to want to make sure that you have all the people in place. You have enough people, both internally and externally, to handle things. If you outsource a lot like we do, look into what they have for their, disaster recovery plans, their business continuity plans. We have an answering service. You want to know what do they do? What do they do when they don't have internet? What do they do when they don't have this? How do they respond to that? So you're going to want to know all those things. You also want to document those things. It can be kind of informal, but make sure you have processes. We're attorneys. And especially if you're a solo small firm, sometimes it's in your head and you don't put it down. And you just think everybody that needs to know knows. So, but it is really important to write it down so that you actually have a plan in place for people to follow, for you to follow, so that you can actually accomplish all the things that I just said. And so as part of this, I kind of wanted to talk about our virtual law firm course. So in April, Laura and I are kicking off our virtual law firm course. If you haven't signed up for our attorney newsletter already, you can go ahead and do that, and you can have updates for when the link is up and ready for you to sign up and move forward with that. Essentially what it is, it's going to be a 5-week course to kind of teach you how to go entirely virtual or add a virtual component. And so in situations where you do have a disruption in business, or you might have some kind of incident that impairs your ability to operate as usual, a virtual law firm or virtual law firm components can be very, very helpful to you. So again, we're fixing to have signups for that. That is going to start in April, and we hope that that will prove to be of value to you all. So if you have any questions, we're here on Tuesdays. We'll be here next Tuesday. Hopefully Laura's feeling better and she'll be back with me. We'll be here at 1 Eastern, noon Central, 11 Mountain, 10 Pacific time to talk to you a little bit more. And we hope you have a great week.